All right, if you want against the spread picks, I do those for 3Down Nation for the Canadian Football League. So we're not going to be giving those out here. This is just going to be a breakdown and then a pick of who I think is going to win the football game. So first, Toronto taking on BC. Kind of a battle of the Titans, so to speak, at the quarterback position. It is Chad Kelly taking on Nathan Rorick. Deeds, welcome to the chat. Yeah, must win for the Stamps this week and not a good week for it. I will explain in a little bit. I went off on the Stamps this week in the 3Down best bets. I'll give you some of the stats that I found from that game, because that is, holy crap, is that bad for Calgary. The stats don't look great for Toronto in their matchup with BC either, though. BC 4-1 record at home, 3-1 in Vancouver, 1-0 in Victoria. You have BC defensively; they haven't allowed a 300-yard passer at home since their home opener back in June against the Calgary Stampeders. Now, giving up 300 yards to Jake Maier is concerning, but they've bounced back obviously since then and have actually looked pretty good defensively. They are taking on the Argos, who have just one road win this season. Toronto beat Montreal 37-18 in week 6. That was a game Cody Fajardo had to leave. So they haven't beat a starting quarterback for 60 minutes on the road all season long. I think Kelly has kind of shown that he can put up his numbers, but he is not doing so in a way that's helping right now. That this team continues to lose with Chad Kelly at quarterback, and I think that continues this week with BC picking up a win over Toronto tonight, in the Canadian Football League on Friday Night Football. Saturday, it is Ottawa taking on Hamilton. I have a few stats on this. I'm not going to say it. Ottawa's a better football team than Hamilton is. And yes, Hamilton is at home. And that home field advantage is better than a lot of home field advantages you would think. They've only won twice. Both games against Toronto, who I just mentioned, not great on the road. So I think Ottawa just wins this football game. I have the Red Blacks over Hamilton. Now, Deeds, we talked before about... Sorry, my camera's not flipped, so I'm pointing at the chat, and it is in the opposite direction. But trust me, I'm pointing at your name, Deeds. The wheels have fallen off for the Stampeders. They've lost 4 in a row. They are 2-7 in their last 9 since they had to leave for their annual Stampede trip. And McMahon, which used to be a sanctuary for this team, isn't anymore. They just got beat. Back-to-back games. Ottawa and Edmonton came in to McMahon and beat this team. And so now you start to look at, okay, well, what was this at home for Calgary? And so I did a bit of a dive on the Stampeders' home wins this year. This vaunted 4-0 record. Week 1, they beat Hamilton, who's 1-5 on the road this season. Week 4, they beat Winnipeg, 22-19. Zach Collaros left that game because of an injury. And that was still when Winnipeg was really slumping and really starting to figure their shit out. Week 7, they beat BC 25-24. This is their best home win. It snapped the Lions' 5-game winning streak. Objectively, BC played pretty bad in that game, but I don't have like a big stat of, well, if they only did da-da-da-da-da. BC just played like shit. But Calgary can say they at least forced them to play like shit, so whatever. And then the last home win was week 9, 27-23 against Toronto. Cameron Dukes was still starting, and Calgary still needed a 21-point comeback in the fourth quarter as they played like doo-doo in the first 3. So that home record that you've been able to kind of bank on for a little bit as a reason for optimism, as you kind of fine-tooth comb that thing, it actually doesn't look that good. And then when you look at the rest of the stats, this team looks really bad. They are turning the ball over way too much. Calgary has 31 turnovers this season. That's the most in the league. They have the worst turnover differential at -15. The next closest team is -9. It has been a disaster for this group. Calgary has turned the ball over 21 times in the last 6 games. The most egregious, obviously, coming last week, where they gave it up to Edmonton 7 times. And yeah, Deeds, fallen off. This team is a truck on Edmonton Public Road, up on cinder blocks. There's no thread left on this team's tires. Yeah, no, they feel cooked. They feel done, quite honestly. But wait. It gets worse. The Stampeders, again, 21 turnovers last 6 games. Calgary has at least 1 turnover in 11 of their 12 games this season. They have at least 2 turnovers in 9 of their 12 games this season. The CFL average for turnovers in a game by both teams is 3.8. Calgary has 5 games this year where they've turned it over 3+ times, including 3 of their last 4. So they are doing basically all of the turnover per game average themselves. It has been horrendous, and it doesn't matter who's playing a quarterback. It's been happening. There's been some turnover on downs, which we'll get to maybe some reasons why for that in a second. There's been some fumbles. The one thing you could point to is maybe there's some bad fumble luck because Calgary has fumbled the ball a bunch and lost the fumbles a lot, and they've only recovered 2. That just, those sorts of things do tend to even out, but still, like they have such a gap in the turnover department that even if they got all the fumble luck, they would still be one of the worst teams in the league in that category. And then when they do hold on to the ball, they don't do anything with it. Only Winnipeg has a worse points per game average this season. And so, of course, when I picked the under in that game, they scored 75 points or 78 points. That was infuriating, but not bitter or anything. They are tied for the 3rd fewest yards gained on first down at 6.2. They are last in the league in second down conversions at 42.4. Calgary is also worst in the league on converting second down when they need 1 to 3 yards. 56.6% on second and 1 to 3 is 10% worse than the closest team. So they are putting themselves in awful positions on first down, where they are one of the worst in the league at yards gained on first down. So you are into second and medium. And honestly, second and medium, this team's actually done okay. Doesn't fit what the thing I'm spinning here, but they've actually been okay on that. But second and 1 to 3, they're getting stuffed. 56%. The next team was at 67.3, I believe it was. So like a 10.7% gap on what's supposed to be the easy ones. Those are the gimmies. They give you a yard in this league. How they are struggling on that is beyond me. And so that's where you get the turnovers on downs, because they are putting themselves in those disadvantageous situations because they're not converting on 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3. And then they're like, well, shit, 3rd and 1, we can get this. And then they don't. Also, the turnovers that are happening when you are putting yourselves in obvious passing situations, which 2nd and 4 kind of borderlines, which is what on average they are dealing with, but that's the average, so you know there's a lot that's worse. When you're putting yourselves in second and long situations, defenses know you have to pass. And what happens when defenses know you have to pass? Well, with Calgary, it goes to the other team. Also, the defensive side of the football, which was supposed to be the strength of this team this year, has been dog shit. You look at this defense, they have allowed the 2nd most points per game in the Canadian Football League, allowing 30.2. They are also allowing the 2nd most opponents offensive 2nd most opponent net offense per game. It's a weird one. I think they're just the 2nd worst in net defense, probably the way to say that. Calgary has also allowed the most average yards gained on first down at 7.5. This has led Calgary to having the 2nd highest opponent second down conversion rate at 51.2%. They also have trouble stopping the run. Calgary has given up 116.9 yards per game on the ground, which is the most in the CFL during this During this 4-game losing streak, they have allowed the opposing team's leading rusher to get over 85 yards in 3 of them. The only game this didn't happen was when Brown and Leak were splitting the carries, and also McLeod Bethel Thompson almost put up 500 yards passing on him. So why the fuck would you run anyway? This is supposed to be the strength of this team. And you look at all of these numbers. No wonder they're losing. When they have the ball, they're turning it over. When they're not turning it over, they're putting themselves in really bad situations, so it's difficult to score. Also, their defense can't get off of the field because they can't get a stop on first down, which is probably due to the fact that they're giving up 116 yards per game on the ground. So when teams are running it, all of a sudden it's 2nd and 3, and the world is your oyster at that point. Everything is just so bad for Calgary right now. And now they're playing a Montreal team that's pissed off because they lost to BC by a ton last week and are refocused, with Ottawa kind of nipping at their heels now for the number 1 spot in the East Division. All of this points to me being quite surprised that the spread was only 5.5 this week. I will just say that. But again, for my full picks and more statistic breakdowns like this, check out my piece right now, 3downnation.com, looking at the best bets for the weekend.